Hey everybody, I'm so excited because my photos are done. I got my photos back. A couple of weeks ago, I posted a video about embarking on an exciting new journey into 120 format film. And it all started because I'd been watching a YouTube video that morning, Sunday morning. I was watching a documentary about Vivian Maier's work. And I'd forgotten all about her beautiful street photography. If you don't know about Vivian Maier, she was a nanny in New York in the 1950s and 1960s. And when she was going out in the streets with her children, she took along a camera and she did a whole bunch of street photography. And there are loads of pictures of her. She did self-portraits in storefronts, and you could see her holding her twin lens reflex, Rolleiflex camera right in front of her. She took these shots, and so many of her photos are just beautiful. And as I watched, I said, wait a minute, why can't I do black and white photography on a twin lens reflex? And the answer was, why not? This was something which I've known about and I've had exposure to since childhood. My mom had been a serious photographer. We had a custom-built darkroom in the basement when I was growing up. And she even had a photocopying business in the early 1980s. And so twin lens reflex cameras were not anything foreign to me. My mom taught me how to use one. Even if she didn't let me take any photos, she taught me how to use one when I was a small child, looking down in the ground glass and focusing. And I wanted to do that. I thought it was so cool. So I did 30 minutes of research. And I found that Mamiya made some really good twin lens reflex cameras. In fact, this is the one that I ordered. Ordered this one from Robert's Camera, Use Photo Pro, and it was sight unseen. I just ordered it. And this is a Mamiya C220. And the reason it's such a good camera, it's very well built, and you can change these lenses. There's many lenses available for these. And you can't do that on other twin lens reflexes. So 4 days later, my new camera arrived with a 5-pack of Tri-X 400 film. And then I brazenly set out to shoot my first 12 shots of 120 format film in my life. And I was nervous. You have no light meter with this. You got to use your own. And I used my X100 I actually would take a picture with the X100, look at the settings that it used, and do the same thing with this. And I figured they're all going to look like garbage. I was all thumbs. Everything was fiddly, and I talked about that in my other video. There I was with my roll of ugly photos, and what do I do with them? And I looked for a lab because I didn't want to risk trying to develop these things myself, introducing yet another variable. If the photos looked ugly, I wanted to know, well, did the camera screw up without having to worry about, did I do something wrong developing them? So I sent them off to a place called The Darkroom, which is a lab located south of Los Angeles. And it was really convenient. You just print out a prepaid mailer label and you tape it to a bubble pack mailer and send it out to them. And a week and a half later, they develop your photos and they send you a link to a gallery and you can download the scanned photos and they send you back your film. And I thought that was really cool. And so it left me fretting for a week and a half about what my ugly photos were going to look like. But so in the future, I'm going to be doing my own black and white developing because it's really pretty easy. But when I start messing around with color, like with a roll of Portrait 400 or something, then I'll send them off to the darkroom, a good place. So as I said, boy, I fretted for those several days. I was checking every day. Did they get it? Did they get it? Oh, they got the package. Okay, how long does it take them to process? Well, this day after they got the film, they had processed it and they sent me the link. And with trepidation, I logged in and I went to the gallery to see my very first shots. So I wanted to share the high points of roll number 1, 12 photos. Actually, there's only 11 because apparently I did something where maybe I might have actually run it to the end, or maybe the camera thought, something happened where only 11 shots were present on the roll. And so without further delay, here's the highlights of my very first roll of 120 film. This here is my wife's orchid. This is the thing that I looked at it and said, whoa, maybe I should just start taking the photos and stop worrying about it. And some direct sunlight in the dining room. I didn't know how far the lens was extended. So if you look at this camera, when you're focusing, you see how the bellows comes out? And you see how the lens extends? When you do that, it actually reduces the amount of light that hits the film because the lens is getting further away. And it got this little chart on this side here that you're supposed to reference. And there's lines for each lens. And so the line, this black line here, that's the one for the 80mm lens that's on here right now. And after I took the photo, I realized, oh, look at that. Darn, it says I'm in a section where I need to actually add a half stop, and I didn't. Well, didn't matter. It turned out perfect. The other thing I was worried about was when you start getting close, you have a parallax error because you're looking at the viewing lens, and this is the taking lens, and there's a distance between the two. And if you're only this far away from what you're taking a picture of, you think that you've got the top flower right in the center of the frame, and it turns out that the bottom flower is in the center of the frame or something. Again, it actually turned out perfect. I was really happy with the composition of photo number one. The sunlight started dimming, so I opened things up and increased the shutter time. And I added an extra stop for good measure, and this is what I got. I'll tell you, I like the first one better. Let me point out something here. There was a scratch present in a lot of these. Now, I looked in the camera for some obstruction that might have caused that scratch, and I think that this was done at the lab. I couldn't find anything, and I've gone very carefully through the film path, and it's a very simple film path, so I don't think I did that. I think the lab did. It's easy enough to fix in Lightroom. Here we go. Look at this vase on the front porch. Just such sharp detail. This is when I realized how awesome Tri-X is. I'm in love with it. And here's a vase next to the stairs. I did 2 shots of this because the light was changing. And I think the second shot right here, this is the best one. And I was really happy. Again, just the way that the shadows turned out on the vase. And I think that if I'd thought this out very carefully and done the whole zone system and spot metering, I would have chose to expose it exactly this way. But it was a happy chance that my regular meter from the X100 gave me this kind of exposure. I like it a lot. I went down the street and here's a random fire hydrant on my road in hazy sunlight. And I took a couple more of the very same fire hydrant. Again, this time looking very carefully at how far the lens was extended and making sure I didn't have parallax errors. I took a picture of the water tower that's right next to where the fire hydrant is. For one reason or the other, I think it actually was pretty cool looking. And I went to Veterans Park at the end of the street, and I can assure you that this set of trees that go into the distance, this looks so much better when there's leaves on them. So I'll be back in a month or two. And I've got some cool photos that I've taken here in the past, but not on Tri-X. And last but not least, here's a winding path in the park. And as I took this photo, a little girl on a scooter passed by me, and she ended up being in the photo. And I'm really happy about this. You can see the scratch on the emulsion. Again, that probably was in the lab equipment. So what did I learn? I learned that manual medium format photography is a methodical process. It's not to be done very quickly. You think things out. A lot of these shots, a lot of the shots I've done in the intervening time have been on a tripod. I learned that Tri-X is beautiful. I'm really happy with the appearance. I learned that exposure isn't nearly as touchy as I expected it to be. Film is resilient. I learned that I need a more convenient light meter. I actually found one. I've got it right here. I'm going to do a video on this. This is a really neat little light meter that it goes right onto the shoe, onto the side. And I'll do a little video about this. It does a great job. But for just taking a photo where I want a general exposure, that little thing is a whole lot better than digging out another camera or using my phone or using a proper light meter. And I just found out I have a new passion. This is great. Black and white film photography. This is really amazing. The look, the way it works, the whole process. So from now on, I'll be developing my own rolls. And I did my very first 2 rolls of 35 millimeter on Friday. I took them with the venerable Canon A1, and it was a bit of a nerve-wracking process, but I used fairly standard development process that I followed, and just follow it very carefully. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm going to do a video about that someday, and it all worked out perfect. And I did my very first roll of 120 film this morning, and that worked out great. So again, that's another story for another day. But from now, let me just say I'm in love with medium format black and white photography. I've got another roll right here, and I'm champing at the bit. Thank you for watching.